Welcome, everybody. In today's lesson, we're going to be covering quite an interesting piece of software that we're going to be looking at. It's part of a series of open source projects that you could then use, which are similar to some of the software that you'll be encountering in your cloud services. So today, we're going to be looking at Kafka. Now, um, I'm going to give you a walkthrough as to how to install Kafka, but in today's lesson, we're going to look primarily at the installation of Kafka, and then towards the end of the session, we will then be looking at how to actually use Kafka and some use cases, which will be particularly interesting um, when you consider what we're going to be covering in this part of the predict. All right. So firstly, let's actually have a look at what is going to be covered in today's lesson. So, in this tutorial, we're going to be covering what is Kafka, and then installing Kafka on Windows, and then the installation of Kafka on Mac, and then just some interesting use cases, as I said, which we will cover towards the end. All right. So let's begin and actually look at what is Kafka now. In big data, an enormous volume of data is used, right? Now, regarding data, we have two main challenges. The first challenge is how to collect large volumes of data, and the second challenge is to analyze the connected data. Now, to overcome those challenges, you will 9 times out of 10 be using a messaging system. And Kafka is precisely that. Kafka is designed for distributed systems. It's actually a distributed event streaming platform, which is used by thousands of companies for high performance data pipelines, which will then provide streaming analytics, data integration, and mission critical applications. Now, what this means is that Kafka tends to work very well as a replacement for your more traditional message broker systems, right? In that it is able to do it at scale. And because of its distributed nature, it is able to collect from multiple points with high throughput, basically providing you with a high number of messages that you are able to then transfer, and you would then be able to then streamline those where they go into either your DB, and from your DB they go out back to consumers as well. Your consumers basically will then be the front end, where the endpoints where you would then be able to read this data. So this is what you would then be using something like Kafka for. Now, this is basically a way in which we're going to be transferring data from one application to another. Right? So the applications focus on data, and they don't worry about how to share that data. This is where Kafka comes in. It is able to uh, create all of those event driven messages saying that this has happened, that has happened. So you could be sharing information that is coming from multiple points. And an example would be reading IoT devices, right? So you could be reading from a whole lot of IoT devices, such as um, thermostats, which are internet enabled, or you could even be reading from different sensors that are placed on a motor vehicle that will be sending a high number of messages through, and sending all of those at the same time. You're able to then select and streamline all of those messages in such a way that it is able to go through, and all of those happen in a matter of seconds, right? So this is essentially what Kafka is amazing at doing, right? There are a number of applications which you could then use Kafka for, and we'll look at some of those use cases towards the end, all right? So let's firstly look at how to install Kafka on Windows. All right. Now, to install Kafka on Windows, you'd simply head to the Kafka download page. I've already got it open over here. And in this download page, you would then be able to, so if we just click over there, so let's just close some of these. All right. So at the Kafka download page, you will then be able to see what is the latest stable release. And as you can see, the latest stable release is version 3.1.0, and it was released on January 24th, 2022. So it's pretty recent, all right? And it is also important to note that Kafka uses um, Java, and it is built with Scala as well. So Scala is the language that we'll be using. However, the back end, the bulk of the work is then done using Java. All right, so that is where we're going to be looking at. So we might actually also have to install Java, and I've also included that over there. And we're then going to uh, configure this as well, right? So from here, as you can see, the latest stable version is 3.1.0, and in terms of the scalar build, um, the one that is recommended is 2.1.3, as you can see over there. And if you then click through, it will then take you to not this page, but to this page, right? Where you would then be able to then see a number of mirror sites. So what the mirror sites do is that they give you connection points closest to where you are. So you could be, in China, you could be in Brazil, you could be in Canada, or even in South Africa, and you would be able to then get a download point that is closer to you as opposed to having to download from a server that is miles away, right? Which makes it a little bit easier. So um, the suggested download would then be the one over here, right? So if you then click that, it will then begin your download of Kafka. All right. Now this is roughly around 84 megs. So please just be aware that this is roughly what you're going to be looking at. And you will then get the download, and if from the download you will then open the zip folder, and you will then be able to look inside. So now let's actually look at what is inside this, all right? So here's the zip folder. I've previously downloaded it, and I just want to see what's actually inside it, right? So we're going to open it up, and inside your zip folder, you would then be able to, firstly, also just to note, it will then show you the version that it is, and yeah, it will show you the version that you've downloaded, which is 3.1.0, and the kind of distribution that you would then be using, right? Which is in this version 2.1.3, right? So that is what we're going to see. And then inside this folder, you would then have the following: bin, config, libs, licenses, and site docs. All of those are folders, right? So just ensure that you do have those folders in your installation. And then in addition to that, you will also have a license file and a notice file. All right. So that is what is inside your Kafka folder. Right. So now that we've got that, please don't think that you would immediately get some of these. These are just folders that I've added in just so that I could then have everything in a central place. Right. So you would then have your bin, your config, your Kafka, your libs, your licenses, and your logs, right? As well as the site docs, which is still a zipped folder as well. And then you also have license and notice, right? The startup folder that I have over here is just something that I will then be providing you with in terms of your configuration, right? And also how to then start up your Kafka server, all right? And as you can see, I've also included in my Kafka folder because when I unzipped it and created a Kafka folder in my C drive, not in any particular place. I just kept it in C drive so that I could find it a lot easier. All right. So there we go. We've got this entire folder unzipped. All right. And I've named it Kafka. So as you can see, it's C Kafka, and that's where I've stored it. All right. And another thing that you would also have to look forward to is just checking if you actually do have Java running, right? As I said, Java is they literally doing the backbone and all of the hard work behind it. And the current version, which is 3.1.0, is able to support Java 17, right? So as you can see, I had Java version 11.0.12, which is pretty decent. As you can see, I had it installed in 2021 um, in July. However, there is now Kafka 17, which is out, Java 17, which is out. So I think it might be a good idea to actually then just try and install it, right? So best way to do it to see what version of Java you have. So Java space dash version, it will then tell you which Java version you are running, right? You don't necessarily have to update it, but you can. It's a nice to have, right? As you can see, I've already updated my Java version. So if you just enter in Java dash version, you will then be able to then get Java installed. Should you not have it installed, you will then be able to just go back to um, the Java page, which is from the official website. So you would then click on that link over there, and it will then take you to where you can download Java. All right, so I've got it open over here. This is Java for Mac. Right, there we go. So this is Java for Windows, and I chose just the 64-bit installer, which is roughly around about 152.43 megabytes. It's an exe file. I just prefer exe, but you can choose a zip folder, which you would then be able to then unzip and then use it. There isn't that much of a difference in terms of the different kinds that you are installing. This is just a preference, really. Okay, so once you've downloaded your Java folder, you will then run through the wizard, and in the wizard, you will then be able to identify. You just step through the wizard, and you'll be able to install it and install it to a place that you wish to have. As you can see, smart screen in my instances on. All right, and it will then start the installer, run through the installer, and you will then have your Java environment being set up, right? So I won't put you through the pain of that. Also, my system is not the greatest because I've got multiple things running, if you can see at the very bottom. So it might not be such a good idea to actually um, have it running again. And thankfully, it's noticing that it has been installed. So just run through the installation wizard and also specify where you would like Java installed. Also, please don't forget to select to include it as an environment variable. All right. Um, if you are doing an update of your Java, you would then already have it as an environment variable. If you are not doing an update, you might not have it. So just be mindful of that. All right. So let's then continue and actually look at what else we would then need to do. What else we would need to do in terms of installing Kafka, right? So now that we've got to this point over here, we now have to configure Kafka, all right? And there are some folders that I would like you to make some changes to, primarily because you want to be able to see where some of this activity is happening, and you don't want to have to be running around and trying to figure out where are my logs, where's the zookeeper starting up to. So what I would suggest is um, going directly to your Kafka folder, all right, and you would then need to go to your config file, all right, and then in your config file, you would then have to navigate to the server properties folder first. All right. So your server properties folder, and I'm going to edit with Notepad++. All right. So here my server properties folder. All right. And in my server properties folder, I will then be easiest way to do this because when you get here, you would then be seeing a lot of information um, that I would advise you to read through just so you can get an understanding as to what is happening. So, for instance, things such as the broker ID, number of network threads, the sockets, the buffers, all of that, that is useful information for you to know. And as you progress further and actually start playing around a little bit more with Kafka, you'll then be able to then change some of those settings. However, for my for my instance, I literally just want to get it up and running quick and fast, just so I can see how it runs and what it does. Right. So I will then ask you to then just scroll down, all right, to logs, all right, um, and you will then find it over here in logs. And under your logs, I would like for you to then make a change to where your Kafka is then stored. All right. So depending on where you installed your Kafka, where you unzipped this file to, I would like for you to then change it to there. As I said, I unzipped it and created a folder called Kafka, and underneath that there is another subfolder. So if you were to then look, in my C drive, I created a folder called Kafka, and then I created another folder, which is Kafka, which is where I then stored my logs, right? You don't necessarily have to create this folder, it will create it for you, all right? So that is where all of the logs for everything that is then done in a Kafka session, that is where all of that will be kept, all right? And I would also then ask you to do the same change to your Zookeeper properties. So once again, you will then go to your config file and then scroll down to Zookeeper properties. And under Zookeeper properties, you then go to data dir, all right, which is where you would then be able to then make some of the changes that you need to make, more especially around your Zookeeper. Once again, it would be best to just store it in the same folder where you have Kafka. You will then just name it Zookeeper, all right? You don't necessarily have to do that, but that is an option. Okay, so that is what you would then be able to do over there. So that is as far as you need to go in terms of um, configuring your Kafka environment. All right. So those are the two folders that I would like, two files that I'd like you to make changes to. All right. And once you've made those changes, your Kafka is ready to go. All right. Now this is for your Windows installation. Right. Now for your Mac installation will then be switching over to the Mac, and you will then be able to then do a similar kind of thing, right? Um, for the Mac, please just be mindful, all right? I'm going to be showing you a different way in terms of installing um, Kafka on Mac, but this installation is already ready, right? So at this point, you're then able to then start playing around with Kafka, which is what we're going to be doing after the installation of Kafka on Mac. All right. So please hang around. For those of you who um, are not going to be using Mac, you can then just skip ahead to where we actually start using Kafka. All right.